Why, another rainy Sunday afternoon. Well, wait, sun come out. Sun come out a little bit. Parking lot flooded. Swim. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of
Float.
Sunday. Well, no, man, it's too heavy to float. I swim like Rockstone in a Richie.
If it's Sunday, as usual,
It is
it's
Sunday
Sunday.
scoops.
Today we're gonna go peel back the onion a little bit.
We've been peeling back this onion for a while still.
Yeah, that big onion.
But
Big
now
onion.
we're going to focus on the onion.
Yeah.
And hopefully by the time we finish peeling it back, there won't be any tears.
Absolutely. Today we're gonna take a look at the R&B influence. R&B as it impacted Jamaica and its influence on the development of the music. I know we spend a lot of time internationally, locally, domestically, globally. We talk about reggae music. In fact, we almost want to say everything will come out of Jamaica reggae music. And that's I can relate to that. I can appreciate
Like reggae is Jamaica and Jamaica is reggae.
Right. But the fact is that long before we got to that part of the vocabulary, there were some other aspects that contributed to how our music was being developed. And a big part of that would have been, the other beats. I'm going to look at how that impacted, as I said, where we are coming from and where we are now. I think we're going to need a little bit more than 2 hours to do this. I am certain it's on the kind of material that we see coming out of these initial discussions. But be that as it may, today, R&B and Jamaican music.
And I'm going to kick it off with one of the first recorded, didn't say it is the first, one of the first recorded songs. It's a song called Man U with Higgs and Wilson. This song came out in 1960, produced by Honorable Edward Philip George Siaga, one of his first recordings, and repeatedly sold 50,000 copies in Jamaica when it was first released.
There is a lot of
ambiguity
surrounding not only this music and but also Siaga's general influence. I think a lot of scribes, and I want to just refer to them as not fully informed scribes, tend to give a lot of this credit to this music. And the music to Siaga, but before we dive into that, I want to set the stage as to, how we got here, right? Jamaica started to get involved with recording music in the late 1940s, right? And to a large extent, the music we were doing, most of this recording, they basically made the tapes and sent them overseas and they brought them back. But a lot of these recordings were with the mentor music, right? With a guy named Lord Flea and Lord Fly and Lord Tanamo and all of that. They were recording music in that period. But that a lot, as I said, a lot of these recordings were being done, people who can put up the money and send the tapes to go to England or to the United States, right? And then, master them and send them out. A very expensive process. In the mid 1950s, though, there were Stanley Motor decided to import a recording machine into his store, was down by King Street, and he put a little advertising in at the Gleaner that invited people to come and record them poetry and voices and so on. And people turned up in droves on King Street. Everybody want record. And
everybody want to hear them.
Then put this recording on what we call, at the time, was referred to as a slate, which is a very temporary kind of recording device. You play it over a period of time and it just wear out. But it basically kick-started this whole business of recording. And over time, in a matter of about 5 years, this thing mushroomed into something much, much bigger. Now, a lot of this stuff also coincided with several aspects of the development of Jamaica, historical developments, and so on. The 1945, the war is over. A lot of Jamaicans were seeing economic opportunities opening up in Kingston and decided to move to Kingston. More importantly, though, a lot of by the late 40s, early 1950s, we started to mine bauxite, and the bauxite mining thing was displacing a lot of Jamaicans of farmland. Marcus, some of them was captured.
Especially in the areas of St. Catherine, Manchester.
St.
Elizabeth.
Absolutely.
Those are the primary and center.
And these guys, so a lot of Jamaicans were heading into Kingston because you clear 100,000 people off a slot of land to provide work for 10,000 people. And so what you have done is that you have displaced 90,000 people. There's nothing else for them to do. And so they come to Kingston. Now, all of this is opening up. People come at town, they have nothing to do. There's no entertainment. Because remember, the big people entertainment was big band on a Beaumont, to go Glass Bucket, Silver Slipper.
Most of the times these places were outside.
It's out of the pocket reach
of
the average person.
Sometimes there's some discrimination.
Absolutely.
Because Roman look on you and say, you're not from Bournemouth Gardens or Vineyard Town.
True. And then, so as I said, there's a confluence of a whole heap of different things. And then you have Beer Johns. Beer Johns was a Jamaican brown-skinned man who had been to the war in the Second World War. Came back to Jamaica, was working with the newspaper. I think he was working with the Gleaner. And he saw himself as a sort of a journalist, reporter, talent scout. And so he set up these talent scout thing. And what they were doing is identifying the talent that existed within these communities. And, of course, while all of the development is going on elsewhere in Jamaica in terms of the bauxite and tourism, hotels are built now, and so on, what was happening is that it wasn't impacting the space where the majority of the people live, which was Kingston. So people come to town and can't find it, they came to town under the guise that with the new industrialization policy that the colonial government was embarking on. Right. They figured that they could get jobs in Kingston because they were building a lot of finger piers, so that, factories were going up and so on. And so them come to town and they can't find no work because most of them can't read and write. But a lot of them they come into the general downtown area and they not house it. So them catch all about the place. Trenchtown became, and the whole of down near Maypen Cemetery there now was one big slum. But with this gathering of people and the talent thing are open up, man said, why, me can sing a tune. Me can, some people, of course, will listen to music to God, where I come from New Orleans. And night time, if you turn on your shortwave radio, you're getting the sounds that come out of Miami, of blues music that is being played on these radio stations that were beaming into Jamaica. And that was now influencing the music. Plus, remember, radio station I play some sanitized Doris Day.
And you're also getting broadcasts from out of the Central and Latin American countries.
Right.
And also Cuba.
So you're getting all of this Latin flavor. But the bottom line is, we were being exposed to foreign music. And so when you go to, the big dance, the band was playing a lot of these Dizzy Gillespie, Sarah Vaughan kind of tunes. But the average man not have the ability to access that. So them now start hear them song and come over shortwave and then decide to try to sing like that. So when you go to a talent contest, Ambassador Theatre, Ward Theatre was really where the big show, the finale was usually here. But they were doing these shows at places like Ambassador. They were doing them at like where you call it, Queen's Theatre down and Palace Theatre down Victoria Avenue and East Queen
South
Street,
Camp Road.
South Camp Road, right? These were some of the centers where you were having, and to a lesser extent, carry. Right? So you had all of these talent contests, and the talenting was showing up singers, people who, we were talking about it the other day, people like Jackie Wilson was a big voice that come out of America. Brooke Benton, Billy Eckstein. What you come a little later where you wanna go back in the early days, Roscoe Garden, right? And so with all of these people gathering up in Jamaica, several things happen. People come together, them not have done to do, them have to entertain themselves. So the sound system is mushrooming. And the sound system depended on foreign tune. People go to England and go to America, go to farmer, and then bring down some farmer tune. Right? People like a Dodd, Duke Reed. And then even, some of the other sound system man them know. What they were doing is they don't want to go down to the wharf go collect music from these guys. So them send them help and them gardener and pick up some tune and come off of the ship and thing. As these tunes became harder to come by, and with recording thing open up, things start to bust out. And so people realize that if we can hear our voice from the slate them, and you play money out just now, but even before that, you did have people like Derek Harriott, who had done the Lollipop Girl tune, and this was, all of this was groundbreaking because these guys were now playing tune that they were creating, and it was now providing a different feel within the entertainment sphere. And the sound system decided to start gobble up these tunes, right? And of course, if you're hearing R&B and blues coming out of New Orleans, you're going to sing blues and R&B. And there's a lot of, intermixing here with, where people listen to, there was what you call, I think, a jump blues, which is a little more distinctive than rhythm and blues. But this was the music we were hearing, and Jamaicans were not unwilling to sing that. And so this is the Manio tune that you hear there, Higgs and Wilson.
Earlier.
We played earlier. Would have been classified as an early R&B tune, right? Siaga himself admitted, contrary to what all them ascribed the thing to him. Siaga said he went to Ward Theatre. It was a final of the Virgin's opportunity, and there were a number of performers. And they had some good tune, but it's how Higgs and Wilson introduced the tune, it got his ear. And him said, he had made the decision to record it. He just liked the tune. But, after the concert, he realized that, it would be good to get a feel for where this record can go. And so at the time he was operating West Indies Records Limited, which was more a distribution thing than Federal Records was thing. And so they went down a Federal
Like that time.
And they recorded the tune. And as you rightly pointed out, the tune sold over 50,000 copies. Now, if you think about 50,000 copies, guys, in a 1959-60.
Yeah, that's almost tantamount to 500,000 records.
Absolutely. Right? And it's an actual physical record. That would be tantamount now to about 5 million, what you call it?
Gold.
Thing from the YouTube
gold.
or wherever. However we take music now.
Views.
It would be about 5 million hits or likes or whatever it is. Thing. And this is, as you say, 1959, 1960. Giving you a little bit of history.
Lollipop Girl, and then I'm going to play Easy Snapping by Cluj and the Blues Blasters. Original recording, Roscoe Gordon, and of course, rocksteady version by Alton Ellison, and later on, Freddie McGregor did a fantastic cover version Obviously.
But you know, the
But this man is not Jamaican, Richard. So why you have me play Rasta?
No, because and that's what I want to explain to the fans outside there. Rasta Garden was an integral name within the music sphere in Jamaica in this 1950s, 1960s period. Again, I mentioned earlier the impact of the sound system. Now, first of all, we played at Theophilus Beckford, Easy Snapping, with Blues Jays and the Blues Blasters, right? Now, a lot of people tend to, we look at ska, and we talk about the scatterlights and things. The ska basically came after this period, right? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. But in this period, bands like Clues J and the Blues Blasters, these guys were masters of blues and R&B at the time. And they would have formed done the bulk of the studio work with studios like Federal Records at the time. And so Theophilus Beckford got his thing. Theophilus Beckford was a composer, singer, pianist, primarily. You hear him punching on the piano in that Easy Snapping thing, which is another seminal music from the blues genre, the R&B genre, coming out of Jamaica in the 1950s, early 1960s period. But Theophilus Beckford drew his inspiration from Roscoe Garden, right? And I want to just give a little tidbit. There was a discussion one time about a dance that was kept downtown. Luke, I think it was one of them land. It wasn't Chocomo land. The Foresters Hall. Coxsone is playing against Duke Reid of a Foresters Hall, and Coxsone had a reputation of some bad tune. And a tune like a Roscoe Garden tune that we just play a while ago, Let Him Try. Mm-hmm. Now, Coxsone would have called it something else. He would have rubbed out the name on the record and call it Coxsone's Big Sound Killer, right? And him have several sound like that, right? In fact, I wrote an article on this on the blog, and I encourage people to go on the Yard Media blog to pick it up. The night Duke Reid killed Coxsone. Well, Coxsone leave him yard and head up to Foresters Hall to go listen to go play against Duke Reid. So, and Duke Reid, by chance, had gotten a whiff of about 10 big tunes that Coxsone was about to preview at this dance. What Coxsone did, what Duke Reid did, is that him wait until Coxsone come through the gate. And Coxsone claimed that when him come through the gate, him say all of this whole heap of lignum vitae, limb them tear down and hang up all over the dance hall and thing. And man of white rum sprinkle the place and all the thing there. And him said Duke Reid goes up, bam, and drop the big tune, Roscoe Garden tune. And Coxsone nearly have a heart attack, you know. And him said Duke Reid goes up, bam, and lick another 5 of Coxsone supposed murder tune. And him said by this time, it was Prince Buster telling the story. We ain't no Prince Buster say him notice how Coxsone, like him turn white, like all of the blood drain out his body. And it came by Coxsone a drink, you know. And him say by the time Coxsone lift up the glass and the first tune drop, the glass stand still in the air. And when Duke Reid fired on another 5 tune, Coxsone dropped down. And the people them now run out with them green bush, lignum vitae leave and start sweep out the place. And say, sweep out Coxsone out here, man, because this is how the sound thing work. You know, so you have your foreign tune. Every sound man want to have an ace in the hole. And so when we started to make our own music now, which is part of why Coxsone could open his own studio now, because now he could have created his own music and his own special. And a lot of the R&B that was generated around this period became specials because Duke Reid have him studio, Coxsone by 62, after him survived the heart attack when they have him open him own studio. Prince Buster would have come out later on, open film own studio too, and so on and so forth. So but at the time, most of these music were being created as specials for the sound system, and this is what was driving the development of the music. And remember, these singers, they're coming out of the talent contest. Remember that when you played a tune earlier, the Lollipop Girl, Derek Harriott was on our show some time ago, and he talked about that. And so when he go up a Thunderbird with the Lollipop Girl, and just recorded, and he said him go Thunderbird was a sound up a Walton Park Road, and he said to the sound man, play the tune. And when the man, the tune was just a man play a banjo, and when the two brothers who one play the piano and Derek a sing and thing. And he said when the tune dropped, Jamaica people wouldn't let go the tune, and he said they must get about £10 or £12 for the tune. £12 a whole heap of money could buy a house in a party. And he said that money, that tune determined what I'm gonna get for the next tune when it turn up. So most of the artists are more too into the distribution of record business.
Or concerned about publishing or
no, they weren't.
Songwriting credits or anything like that.
Absolutely. They were more about making the money and then get
making a life.
Yeah, them get that. So you imagine you get £12 for a tune. Yep. £2, 5 shilling out of that could have pay your rent for 6 months. You know have to think. So the artists,
which is something that Dr. Densor talked about, that if you put things into perspective and realize at the time when most of these songs were being recorded, people can go back in hindsight and say, yeah, we did X, Y, Z. But at the time, when you have 4 or 5 baby mother, it is about making sure that your kids eat.
Absolutely.
So therefore, if someone tell you, I'll give you £1,000 today, and then you can just forget about it. You're just going to take the £1,000 under the tune and gone.
Absolutely, and gone. Another tune that came out of this era, I know you're probably curious. Yeah, we're there?
Yes.
We have I saw the time run out fast, man. Oh my God, let's go to the break.
Okay, so you heard in order of playing as we came back from the break. George and the Old Shoe. This is by Theo Beckford and Cruz J and the Blues Blasters. And then I played the Jack and Jill Shuffle. Eastern Street Riff, and this you just heard was the Shuffling Jug. Again, Cruz J and the Blues Blasters.
There's an old album I remember when I back in Jamaica, the record collection business. There was Coxsone put out an album called Dancehall 63, and that a lot of that material that we just heard, at least 4 of those songs. Right.
Yeah, the voice that you heard
was King.
Smash. That's King Stitt.
The great King Stitt. The ugly one. King Stitt. Yeah. But again, this is the music that formed the foundation of the development of Jamaican music, right? Because a number of things were happening, and the historical significance is what we want to make sure that we hammer that down. A number of things were taking place in Jamaica at the time, both socially and economically. And although people talk about the 1960s were some of the most progressive times in Jamaica, certainly in that immediate pre-independence and post-independence period. While the country's economy was finding direction, a lot of that economic direction and the benefits of it wasn't really reaching the majority of the people. And within these inner city communities, now if you can imagine, for those of you who are not in Jamaica, the whole Kingston and Lower St. Andrew, because anything below Crossroads, right, is considered as Lower St. Andrew generally. I think that in time they basically pieced it onto half a tree. But Lower St. Andrew down into the south side of Kingston, from Rockford
Southwest side.
all the way down to Riverton City, which is where the dump piece are on. And then right behind that, well, in the middle of that, you would have on Spanish Town Road, the Maypen Cemetery. This was a place where the people who couldn't find nowhere to live, you find a little house that could become available, and 20 family live in a
And most of
3-bedroom
the times,
house.
these houses were vacated by people who were moving uptown.
Absolutely, because those who were benefiting from the economic development. So if you live at Jonestown,
Right.
they live at Jonestown or Trenchtown, and
Or
Greenwich Farm too, partially Greenwich Farm. So you get a nice good job of work with the government service or with the tourist board or something like that. Everybody, once you start, you get a salary that you can work with. You move. So Jonestown, which was at one point a middle class area, those bigger houses now, the people who live on the street becomes tenement yard. And then the government had built up some tenement structure between Trenchtown and Jonestown, that people were trying to gobble up these houses. But importantly, among the population that was occupying these spaces, that's where the talent pool was coming from. There are stories as we drifted into the 70s of the groups like the Heptones and the Mighty Diamonds, which these groups were formed out of this period. But before they hit the streets, there were people before them. And we the last episode of Sunday Schools, we dealt with the blues, Jackie Edwards. We dealt with the Blues Busters
before him. Yes.
Before him, and so on. So a lot of these singers were coming forward. They migrated to
Some
Kingston.
migrated into Jamaica from Barbados,
Right.
from Trinidad.
But
so you're getting the Lord Creators, you're getting the Jackie Opels, the Jackie Edwards, the Lynn Tates. All of these guys were transplants from, and then Rico Rodriguez, who grew up in Cuba,
right.
That kind of stuff.
The other thing so that you want to keep in mind, as the 1960s opened and Federal is becoming a big recording studio, what was happening to Thiaga was running West Indies Records Limited at the time. He probably did that just for a few years before he sold it out to Barony and went full-time into politics.
And that became Dynamic Sounds.
And it became Dynamic Sounds. But in that period, a lot of R&B artists were coming to Jamaica to record. It was cheaper, and they were able to, probably what they would have paid for a recording session in America, them can get 10 recording sessions for that in Jamaica. Plus them get free backup singers, because these guys in the studio, they might try to eat a food. And if, a Major Lance, people like a Major Lance was the thing. With Johnny Nash. All of these guys were coming to Jamaica to put together material. And their voices, remember, most of our Jamaican singers were trying to sing like them. You talk about Curtis Mayfield earlier.
Yeah.
The Drifters, all of these groups coming out of the late 1950s, 1960s period, they were producing R&B music. And so this is what our local talent was recorded. And so out of that, we were you had birthing people like what's his name? Owen Gray. Right? You're not playing no Owen Gray tune yet. But but man like a Owen Gray, what was also important to is a lot of these guys to God, the people like a Owen Gray, etc., were when the independence thing started to, become a bigger clarion call. None of them jump on the earliest boat them go to catch. Ghana, England.
And interesting you talk about
Hi there.
If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.